Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey y'all, welcome back to the podcast. Our guest today is Mercedes Samudio. She is a licensed psychotherapist, parent coach, speaker, and best-selling author of the book Shame-Proof Parenting. She helps parents and children communicate with each other, manage emotional trauma, and develop healthy parent-child relationships. Mercedes is an adjunct professor at Chapman University and Pepperdine University, where she teaches psychology, diagnosis of mental illness, and multicultural counseling. Mercedes started the hashtag End Parent Shaming movement, as well as coined the term shame-proof parenting, using both to bring awareness to ending parent shame. Shame in parenting comes up so frequently with so many of the clients that I work with, as well as in our Facebook group, Peaceful Parenting with Sarah Rosensweet, which is a free group which you can join. And it's so important to know that we can mess up and that we are still great parents because we're human and everybody messes up sometimes. This is just a little bit of what Mercedes and I talked about in this podcast. We also talked about parenting in the pandemic, which we are still in. And I just really hope that you get as much out of this conversation and learn as much as I did and enjoy the conversations as much as I did that I had with Mercedes. So let's just dive in and meet Mercedes. Hi, Mercedes. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about the topic that you have written a book on and that you work with parents on, which is shame-proof parenting. Because I think that just comes up so much for so many of the parents that I work with, and I know the parents you work with as well. Can you talk a little bit about what is shame-proof parenting and maybe why it's so important?
Yeah, so the term shame-proof parenting came up from my work with parents where I realized that shame happens no matter what. So it happens when you're trying to make the best decision for your child. It happens when other people interact with you in your parenting and your children. And I didn't want to teach parents to be shame-free because I think that's an impossible way to live. But I wanted them to learn how to be shame-proof, which is when that comes up, when those feelings of judgment or embarrassment or overwhelm come up, you don't come into each other and start fighting each other, but you come together and say, wow, this is hard for us. Wow, this is something that we haven't dealt with or we're tired of dealing with. How do we come together and support each other? And so shame-proof parenting is really a mindset or a framework rather than a parenting skill. It's more really about how do I become more comfortable with the fact that the world isn't always going to be good to me or my family. How do we continue to shame-proof ourselves against that?
So can you give us an example of how that works in real life?
Sure. I think the past 2 years have been a great example of that with, decisions on vaccinating or decisions on sending your kids back or doing virtual, right? These are all really big, complicated decisions that are not just about, I'm going to do this or that. Any of these decisions can reverberate throughout your whole family and change the dynamic of your family. And so as I've been working with families, helping them to be more shame-proof, we've started talking about things like empathy, starting with being kind to yourself. This is a really overwhelming decision to make. Even if you're so sure, looking at your 6-year-old and being like, okay, let me go get you vaccinated is a big deal. And so helping parents to first realize, be empathetic toward yourself. I always talk about really starting with knowing what you need before you knowing what the solution is. What do I need? Well, I need to feel safe. Okay, maybe that needs to be part of the solution. Or I need to know the facts. Okay, maybe that needs to be part of the solution, right? But really understanding more about what do you guys need to make the solution or to make the final decision, as opposed to just feeling overwhelmed with everything. And again, that doesn't mean that it won't happen, but it goes back to this idea of this is our family at the end of the day. What do we want to do so that way we can stay healthy, we can maintain our way of life? That's what shame-proof parenting is about. And I think our pandemic has given us a really great moment to really talk about what does that look like?
One thing I've thought about so much in the pandemic is that sometimes it feels like no matter what decision you make, it's the wrong one, right?
Mm,
So, whether do we keep our kids home or do we send them back to school? Do we whatever decisions that we have to make.
right.
So I think it's really even more important to talk about being shame proof in those situations because there's not a clear answer, right? It's not like this is the right answer that I can feel so great about.
Yeah. And I think shame proof allows us to sit through those moments of uncertainty. Part of the shame proof parenting, too, is having confidence, right? Having confidence that I'm making the best decision now with the information I've gathered now, but also having the confidence to know that when more information presents itself, I can make another decision. Me and the family can sit down and say, okay, there's more information now. Do we
Hmm.
want to keep going this way? And I think that that is confidence. And let me reframe that. A lot of parents are like, I don't want to be arrogant. What are you good at? Well, I'm really good at weighing options. This is a perfect time to use that skill. I'm
Hmm.
really good at crunching numbers. This is another good time to use that skill. I'm really good at sitting through uncertainty. Whew, here's a really good time to use that skill, right? And so when you look at confidence, confidence isn't I'm better than everybody. Confidence is what am I good at and how can I use that to support each other, right? And so when a parent feels confident in, I'm actually really good at making decisions when I have all the information. Oh, okay, let me get the information then. And so I teach parents these things that help them to realize a lot of the time when we sit with ourselves and our family and we say, okay, what do we want to do? It helps you to really find at least a space to move from. It might not be the final answer, but at least says, okay, we know we want to feel safe and we know we want our family to feel loved. That's the foundation. Whatever decision comes from that needs to be here. Well, that means that you can manage that uncertainty now because at least you know that we need to feel safe and we need to feel loved in our family. So, whatever we do, let's start with that.
Hmm.
That's a shame proof family. If you look at that, we don't know what the answer is. We have no idea what's going to be, but we know that our family needs this to feel together, or our family needs this to continue trying to get through whatever the hardship is. That's the shame proof piece, not knowing how to do it, just knowing what you guys need or coming back to that, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. One place I think that shame comes up a lot is the what will other people think or
Mm,
what do other people think, right? Like the
yes.
your kids having a meltdown at the grocery store or talking back to you in public or at grandma's house or whatever. And how do you counsel parents to work through that trigger that I think is it's actually so much at the root of our adult tantrums, right? When we're worried about what other people think and then we get triggered with shame. So how do you help parents when they find themselves in that situation?
Well, I start with the tenets again. We start with that idea of empathy. Be kind to yourself, right? Realize that in this moment, it's probably really overwhelming for both of you. I always tell parents that in the moment, if you can start with empathy and get you guys to safety, it'll actually help a lot more than trying to deal with it right in that moment. Whatever's going on, whether it's fatigue or overwhelm, or maybe your kid does want something and you did say no, that could all be true. However, in the moment, realizing I'm upset and so are they. Let's get out of here. Whatever's
Hmm.
going on here, we need to get out of here. What I'll also say is this having empathy for that, having to leave because we could not manage that, name that. We couldn't get each other through that. We had to leave. That was big. That was hard. I think a lot of times when we're trying to deal with our kids, we try to glaze over the hardships of life, which makes the kid feel like maybe we shouldn't, feel these things. And it also makes parents feel like maybe I don't know how to deal with things. That's actually true. Maybe I don't know how to deal with things. Have empathy for that. Maybe I don't know how to help my kid through this. Whew, that's big. If you can start with what I can and can't do, it actually helps you then figure out what you need help with. Maybe you realize I actually can't get through a groceries, trip with a 2-year old right now. What else can I do?
Hmm.
Right? Instead of saying, I need to learn, I need to make Sarah figure out how to sit in this cart for yes, that's
Hmm.
one thing, but at the end of the day, it's also like, what helps me feel better? Well, I feel better when I can just get in and get out. Well, not with a 2-year old. Okay, then what else can I do? Right? If you start paying attention to these beats and not dishonoring those beats, it actually helps you to get more aware of yourself right? What you can and can't handle, and to be honest about it. Can and can't handle, I've told people, is not a value thing, right? It's
Right.
just knowing what your limits are, right? I can't handle a 50-pound car. I'm not going to try to pick it up, right? And that's probably not how much a car is. It's probably more than that. But the sentiment is, if I know I can't handle it, then I get help.
Hmm.
And we do that almost with everything except for parenting, right?
Yeah,
If
so
you
true.
can't move a car, you're gonna call the tow truck. You're
Yeah,
not gonna try to push your car home, right? Because you
right.
know you can't do that. And so when it happens in our parenting, we think, oh my God, I can't help my kid do a tantrum. I failed. Instead of realizing I can't. I get really dysregulated when they have tantrums. I can't help them. Huh.
Hmm.
What can I do then? Does someone else need to help? Do I need to get more skills? Do I need to call? Like, what is there a diagnosis here that maybe we're missing?
Hmm.
Right? So when you address I'm at my limit, then you can start realizing then it's not even about shame anymore. It's just I am at my limit. I can't help anymore. Now what can I do?
Well, I think that there's so much around perfection, right? Like,
Mm,
I should be able to do all of this. I should be able to go grocery shopping with my 2-year-old. And then
mhm,
people are so hard on themselves. It's so hard for them. Like what I find with my clients, it's so hard to even get to that point where they think I can't do this. And then that's okay. Like it's okay if I can't do it. Like I'm still, a great parent, even if I can't handle this
right.
aspect of parenting. How do you help? This is something that I see come up so much with parents. I mean, my twist on the work that we both do is that we need to love ourselves even when we
Mhm,
mess up, right?
mhm,
Like, so
mhm,
I have this phrase that I use with parents a lot where I say, even though I couldn't manage this grocery trip with my 2-year-old and we had to leave, I'm still worthy and lovable.
mhm,
Because I often think that shame comes from it's like this binary idea, right? Like you're either worthy or lovable, or you're a horrible person and a horrible parent. And that there's no room, like the only way we feel worthy and lovable is that if we're perfect, right? So
mm,
that idea that you can mess up or that you can not have a skill or you can have a challenging child or whatever that causes you to not be able to finish the grocery store trip because of the meltdown, that you're still lovable. And I find that that's really hard for parents. How do you help parents with that idea of loving themselves when maybe they were raised with this, like, conditional parenting
mm.
where they were only worthy and lovable when they were good or quiet or got all A's or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. And I love so much of what you just shared. And I wanted to kind of give you that too in your work of that phrase is so powerful that even though XYZ happened, I'm still worthy and lovable. I love that. And I just want to reiterate if that's what you're telling your people, I I think that's great. I might
Oh,
kind of
thanks.
take that and use that
Go
because I
for
think
it.
it's such a beautiful phrase that oftentimes we don't say, whether in any part of our roles, whether it's a parent or a partner or a coworker or whatever, wherever we are, we don't ever tell ourselves that. And I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. Like really,
I
I'm
mean,
just like
that's,
sitting
yeah.
there like, oh, that's a beautiful phrase. I love
I
it.
know. I use it all the time just for myself, like
Yeah.
it helps me when my husband and I will get in some silly fight or something and I'll try and prove that I'm right. And I realize that's one of my big triggers in life, right? Is that I have to be worthy and lovable. I have to be smart
Mhm.
and right. And when I feel that's challenged, I get shame triggered and I have to actively remind myself, even though I'm wrong about this, or sometimes even though my husband thinks I'm wrong about this, I'm still worthy and lovable, right? So that's been helpful for me personally and professionally to use that phrase of letting both things be true. I didn't handle that tantrum well, and I'm still worthy and lovable. Or my child's not listening to me, and I'm still worthy and lovable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And to kind of go into your question, the reason why I really like that is because I think that's the deep work of parenting is realizing that you're still human while you're raising a human. And I oftentimes have to remind my parents of that you are not a parent. That doesn't put you in another species of existence. You're actually still a human. You're just taking on a new role. And so that humanness doesn't go away once you start parenting. Whatever you brought with you is there still, good, bad, indifferent, neutral. But now you've got another human that's watching you, right? It's where I came up with the idea of the parental identity development model, where you already have a sense of yourself, for better or for worse, before you become a parent. Once you become a parent, now you're taking on a whole new identity development. You're coming into a new sense of yourself. Up until then, you may have been a partner, or you may have been a professional, or you may have been a sibling, or a daughter or a son to somebody. You've kind of gotten all those roles for better or for worse, what they are. Now, as a parent, you're really coming into a new role, but that doesn't alleviate the humanness of all those other roles or of who you are. And so when we're looking at parental identity development, this is how I help parents to get to that phrase where it actually feels real to them. We start talking about, who are you? Where did you come from? Part of the model actually asks parents at each phase of their child's life, what did you learn in that phase of your life?
Hmm.
Right? And so when you were a toddler, what did you learn about being human? When you were a teenager, what did you learn about identity and yourself? Because these are the things that you're going to have to now teach your child, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's where we can get to, I'm worthy, because you start to realize, wow, my parents taught me that I should not ever have emotions. And now I'm realizing I'm struggling with my 3-year-old because they're having a lot of emotions. And I was told 3-year-olds need to sit down and shut up.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. It opens up a new understanding of awareness, right? Now you're understanding how much your parental identity was influenced by your whole life, not just the baby who's in front of you, your whole life influence. What do I think about 3-year-olds? What do I think
Yeah.
about 5-year-olds? What are kids supposed to be doing in a family? Someone taught you that, and now that's there. And
Hmm.
then going back to that bigger piece, what I do is we talk about the trauma that may have caused and the dissociation and the detachment from your own self that all of that may have caused for you, that now your child is bringing back up because now they're 3 and they're needing you to sit with their emotions, but someone told you you couldn't have any when you were 3. And that's
Hmm.
hard because think about it. Most of us don't become parents until we're in our 20s and 30s. And if I was told at 3 to not have emotions, that means I'm 30 and
Yeah.
I let that at 3,
Yeah. And so you're
right?
dealing with it on two levels, is how I think of it too. Like, not only do you not know how to support emotions because nobody ever taught you that when you were a kid, but also when your 3-year-old's doing behavior that would have meant yelling or a smack or something to you, it feels like it's an emergency, right? And
Mm,
so I love how you're encouraging parents to become aware of, like, shining a light, right? Like,
mm,
what is inside you about how 3-year-olds should act or how
yeah,
teenagers should act or whatever it is.
right, right. And I think that's the hardest part of the parenting space because our kids question that just by existing. Even if your kid is nonverbal or preverbal, I talk about infancy and how infancy really challenges what we learned about needs, right? Our kids need us in infancy 24/7. They can't get up and do anything. And so when you are a parent who maybe has had a hard time with your own needs or addressing your own needs or even getting them met, having someone, looking at someone who's getting their needs met 24/7 can be very triggering. And it can
Mhm.
be hard to pay attention to that. And so when we talk about it, we shift this perspective from I'm a bad parent to something happened to me. And this is why I have such a hard time seeing. And maybe I never saw a baby cared for. So now I'm trying to, and I don't know. Right? Maybe I
Mhm.
never saw someone not pop a kid on the bottom when they messed up. So I don't know, even though I know I shouldn't, I don't, what's the alternative? No one
Yeah,
did
what else do
anything
I do?
else. And so I think that becomes what I do with my work, right? I do shame proof parenting intensives where we do like an 8-hour day of like, let's look at you, let's look at what you need. So you leave this day not, I'm a bad parent or I'm a good parent. You leave this day being like, I'm a full human. And
Oh,
so
I
is my
love that.
child. Okay. Because I don't want
Yeah.
my parents to feel good or bad because that's so static to put yourself in these two buckets only. You get to be a full human, not just good or bad.
And it brings up so many emotions in this, doesn't it? Like that when I was just thinking about, if you were a baby or a small child and your needs didn't get mad, if you're, I know you and I both believe that parents do the best they can with the resources that they have. So I'm not trying to shame anyone's parents out there. Sometimes no fault of their own that they couldn't meet their child's needs, but there's still that child who may be us, right? Or the parents that we work with whose needs didn't get met. And then there's that sadness that comes up when they start to realize, like, oh, this baby needs me so much, and or this toddler, and I'm, showing up. What about me? Like, what about when I was little, or what about the part of me that still hasn't been healed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece of shame proof parenting that is so important to me is that when we learn to have empathy for our full selves, not just the parent part of ourselves, but our full, even having empathy. I was working with a mom once where we realized her parenting really wasn't the biggest issue. What it was is she couldn't feel empathy for herself because she gave up her career to be a
Mm.
parent. And that was her choice. Like she chose no more career, focusing on kids for the next, but she couldn't have empathy for that because she kept seeing other people advancing their careers. And so when we looked at it, I was like, your parenting, actually, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. I don't feel like, can we talk maybe about this or that or some other places where you might not be feeling as fulfilled? And that's what came up. And it's that idea that shame-proof parenting, even though it has parenting in the title, it's really about helping parents feel more full. Even when your kids are going well, it's okay to also explore maybe my marriage isn't as well, or maybe my relationship with my friends, or my mom, or my relationship with my profession. You can also work on those things too. Being a parent doesn't have to be just about kids, right? It
Hmm.
is for a lot of the time. And I think, let's be honest, it is. A lot of the time, it's about them. But there are times when I've had parents tell me, the kids are fine. I just realize I'm still unfulfilled. And I'm like,
Yeah.
those are the small moments where you just say, where is that? Maybe the kids
Yeah.
will yell in 10 minutes and you have to attend to them. But for those 10 minutes where you're like, okay, the kids are safe, everyone's fine. I just feel like I want to be better in my profession. I want to get back into that. That starts the surge to being that full human, even if you can only devote 10 minutes to thinking about it. And I say this on a bigger scale because I think oftentimes when we get into parenting conversations, we get into kids' behaviors, kids' stuff, kids, and we forget there's still a human who's living there too. And while getting your kids stable is really important and a huge part of, I'm sure, your own stability, taking care of yourself and being really empathetic to yourself. Sometimes, if that's all you can do, you're on that path to being a shame proof parent. If all you
Hmm.
can do, maybe you didn't eat, maybe you didn't take a shower, but you can just look at yourself. And I love your phrase and just say, even though I didn't get to my own self care today, I feel really worthy and I feel
Hmm.
really good. You
Hmm.
just did a self care thing right there. You just told yourself
Yeah.
that one sentence at the end of the day,
Yeah. Yeah, self-compassion. I mean, we
right?
talk about that so much in my work and my community. And I have a phrase where I say, talk to yourself like your inner best friend.
Mm,
Like if your best friend came to you and was like, I just yelled at my kids and I had the worst day, what would you say to your best friend? You certainly wouldn't say, you're a terrible mother and you don't even deserve to have those children, right?
right.
And something else that you said about, parenting isn't always about the kids. And I think that's really important to just highlight because, I have clients who say, wait a minute, after a couple sessions, they're like, this isn't even about my kids. This is about me. Right. And I wanted to share with you, I had a podcast guest on who wrote this wonderful book called Find Your Unicorn Space. Her name's Eve Rodsky. And I think this is so, she doesn't directly talk about parenting, but it more about being fulfilled as a person. And she talks about how we each have to have something in our lives that lights us up, and it's not self-care. It's not like, exercise and enough sleep, but it's like something that we're interested in, that is something creative that we just share with ourselves or share with the world, but something that we do just because we want to. I mean, she
Mm,
doesn't like the word hobby, but that is the closest word that I can come
mm,
to explain to somebody who hasn't read the whole book. But I think that is a really important part of what we're talking about too, right? Is like, you
yeah.
can't just give yourself up
You
for
can't.
your children or your partner or your work. You have to think about, like, what do I need? What lights me up? What makes me interested and interesting?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think that's something that as I work with parents, we talk about even finding small moments of that. So not thinking like, oh, I have to spend 5 hours on my, thing. No, sometimes it is just like 10 minutes of a thought where you're like, oh, I had this thought that I want to try and I'll Google it later. Okay, write that down, put it on your
Hmm.
phone. I often tell my parents, I know they don't like to be on the phone, but I'm like, if you're more of a digital person, it's fine to have your notes app open and write something down that you'll come back to. It's fine to even look at your whole week and find time to say, on Saturday morning, I'm actually going to look at this for 10 minutes, right? And again, it's not because things won't happen that's going to disrupt that. It's not saying that the whole world won't crumble. Unfortunately, we saw that over the past 2 years. We can make plans and the world decides something else. But I definitely think reminding yourself that, okay, this is happening, that doesn't mean I have to give up on myself this week. This is a period of time. I don't have to give up on myself during this period of time either. Right. And
Hmm.
I think that's the part of shame proof parenting and talking about parental identity that's so important to the work that I do is that I want parents to feel like you have to be fully human in order to raise a full human. You can't ignore whole parts of yourself and then say, okay, this is the only part that I'm going to show. And then want and expect your kids to be full humans. They'll only kind of show up as much as a human as the people around them will. And so that doesn't put the pressure on you to be perfect. It actually takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Now you can just be human. You don't have to be like the perfect parent who teaches them everything. You
Yeah.
could just be like, well, I'm a human and I'll teach them some stuff. And then Auntie Sarah will teach them some stuff. And then cousin such and such might give them something. And Peppa Pig is definitely helping us, right now, right? And realizing that all of those influences are actually because you have set up an environment for your kid to have really healthy people in their life. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always have to be you,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah. I love what you said about, being a whole person. And I think all of us would balk at the idea that if we tell our kids that we would tell our kids, you have to be perfect, you can only do right things, you can never mess up, right? If you told someone, they'd be like, no, that's not what I want for my children. Well, why do you do that for yourself? Right?
Right, because
So,
that's what our
yeah.
kids see, and I know we're kind of wrapping up, but I think that's what our kids see. When I teach my parents, speak out. Sometimes when you're having a hard day, it's okay to say, "Man, today was really tough. I had back-to-back Zoom meetings, and now I'm so tired."
Mm-hmm.
You just taught them how to share how tired they are just by
Mm-hmm.
saying it in the house. How are you doing? Oh, well, I'm fine, Mom. We didn't have class that long today. That's good. So we had different days. You had a day where you didn't have to be on Zoom as long, and I had a day when I was on Zoom too much, right? You just showed them that that's okay. We can both have two different days, right?
Well, and
And so,
maybe you even say, after I'm so tired, I think I'm just gonna put a frozen pizza in the oven for dinner tonight.
mm,
Right? So you can also model, like, how do you take care of yourself when you've had a long day and
I
you're really
love that.
tired?
I love that. So yeah, I think that I love that we're on the same wavelength, right? But I think
Mhm.
that that's the piece of being full. It's showing ourselves even that frozen pizza on a day where you've had back-to-back Zooms is literally a great idea today to take care of
Yeah.
myself,
Who cares?
right?
Yeah. Kids are happy with so much less than we expect them to be happy with.
Mm,
I have a story I want to share with you. I think I read it somewhere. I don't know the person, but this woman said that she was sharing with her mom one of her favorite memories of childhood, which was when her mom would make her and her sister small plates. That's what they called it for dinner, where they would have like a couple slices of cheese and, a couple of olives and some crackers, or I'm making it sound like a grown up cheese and wine night, but you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
just like a few things on a plate. Their mom would let them eat in front of the TV. And she was sharing that was like one of her best memories of childhood. And her mom said, are you kidding me? Those are the nights that I couldn't cope and I couldn't make food for you. And I was so exhausted and burnt out. But I just love that, the mom did that. And then the kids experienced that as a great childhood memory, these small plates that they would have.
Yeah. I love that. I love That's a great story. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. I actually want to pose a question to you, which I haven't had a chance to think about it. I just saw this question right before we started our chat together, which was, if you could go back to February 2020, what would you tell yourself?
That's a beautiful question. Well, I think where I was in February of 2020 was very on the verge of burnout, but I was about to push myself to do more. And then March happened and I had to sit. And so, what I tell myself in February 2020 is what's about to happen is going to scare you, but you'll be okay.
Oh, I love that. I'm
Yeah.
actually glad that we didn't know it was going to be as long as it has been back then, because I don't think
Me too.
anyone would have been able to cope.
I agree.
Um, okay, I'm going to ask you one final question, which is a
Yeah.
question that I ask all my guests. What do you think is a really important piece of advice that brand new parents need who are just starting out on this journey? And of course, this can go for everyone, but what would you tell parents as they're starting out?
No matter what you do, you can always make a different decision and try again.
I love that. And that brings us full circle to the shame proof idea of we can always revisit this idea.
Hmm. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Can you tell our listeners where the best place is to find you and find out more about you and what you do?
Sure. The best place to kind of get started is on my website, shameproofparenting.com. There you'll find links to my books, some blogs, videos, as well as links to my social media. But I'm pretty much everywhere. If you also Google Mercedes Samudio, you'll come up on all of my stuff as well.
Thank you so much, Mercedes.
Thank you.
There's so much to digest in that conversation, isn't there? If you would like a non-judgmental, beautiful, safe place where you can go and get support from other parents on this journey along with you, be sure to check out our free Facebook group. It's a peer support group. It's called Peaceful Parenting with Sarah Rosensweet, and love to see you over there. And part of ending shame in parenting is knowing that we're not alone and we don't have to be perfect. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.